With a title like Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, it's clear that this game has one message for its players. Crash 1, 2, and 3 happens, and everything after that was one big fever dream. Let's just start off by pointing out that the gameplay just straight up feels great. You start off with a double jump, the slide jump and slide spin both still work, and while the slide spin isn't as abusable as it once was on the original PS1 classics, rather than taking it out and making it impossible to spin right at the end of a slide, they just fixed the momentum issues it had. It used to carry over way too much momentum, meaning that you could move much faster than the game expects you to. As it stands now, the spin will just cancel out the little pause Crash usually does after a full slide, making it, number 1, still useful to use, number 2, satisfying to pull off, and most importantly maybe, number 3, makes it so that you don't have to unlearn those moves if you've been playing Crash for years now, which most people playing this game probably have. The game starts out on a difficulty level which clearly says if you've not played Crash 1, 2 or 3, this game is not the place for you to hang. And while you expect a game to ramp up in difficulty, this game stays more or less consistent with how difficult it is. Well, except for the level Dino Dash, in which you will find this obstacle, where you have to slide under these rocks on these moving tiles on top of lava and then jump off onto the next one, only to have to do a move like that again and again. The developers fully knew what kind of crap they were pulling here, as there's a checkpoint right before and after this thing, as well as this game's version of the death route, the flashback tape, being put right before this place. I died about 150 or so times at this stupid thing and made it only through 2 times. Ignoring that small annoyance though, I'd argue this game feels better in its basic gameplay than the Insane trilogy did, and much closer to getting the feeling of the original games, which is something you'll hear me use to compare this game to regularly in this review. Of course, it is not the late 90s anymore, and games these days are different from games back in the day, but this game is so adamant about being a sequel to the classics, I feel okay comparing them, at least a bit. Aside from the basic gameplay, we also have some new power-ups in the form of 4 new masks. An idea that totally wasn't taken from the Elementals in Wrath of Cortex, which this game wants to make sure you forget exists. Thinking about it, that means Crunch is no longer canon, I suppose. Anyway, these masks are good guys and will give you certain powers, like shifting between dimensions to be able to jump through certain obstacles or enemies, or making boxes switch from being transparent to being solid. This only affects objects in the game that were predetermined though. It might sound like a weird mechanic, but it actually can be used very well in clever level design, where you can jump, shift in midair, land on a newly formed box, and then shift back to land onto the platform again. It's a little hard to explain with words, but it has a lot of potential, which this game delivers on very well. The Dark Matter mask is... it's just a longer tornado spin from Crash 3 on steroids. It's pretty boring and makes any place it shows up in laughably easy, since it gives you so much freedom to move around and literally dodge anything. This is a good moment to point out that these powers are only given to you within certain sections of certain levels and aren't something you can call on at all times. This power, at least to me, seems like the main reason for that choice, since shifting can only be done with predetermined object as it is, so having it limited to only a certain section seems a bit weird. But having this power outside of specifically designated areas for it would break the game. So, I will challenge all of you speedrunners out there to find a way to abuse this, because we know you will. Then we have the Time Mask, by far my favourite mask there is. It slows down time for a short period of time. Relativity aside, this can be used in a bunch of awesome ways. You can jump onto a nitro and run away before it explodes, but you have to be careful to get away as quickly as you can, because you can't use this power infinitely. This is a way more interesting version of the Nitro Sneak that you had in Wrath of Cortex. Yeah, we have it again. I seem to remember this game that supposedly doesn't exist. You can also slow down enemies to make them easier to kill. Another power that might be slightly overpowered if it were able to be used outside of its designated areas, though not nearly as badly as a dark metal spin. But its main purpose is the power to slow down quickly moving platforms, to be able to actually jump across them. It's simple, really, but somehow they managed to make it loads and loads of fun to do. You always feel like you just about made it within the short time they give you, which might just be because they didn't give you much time at all, but it never really feels like an issue for me. In certain cases, they even have falling platforms as, well, platforms. But then when you get a little bit higher up, those same platforms are still falling down and now act as obstacles between the actual platforms. Honestly, this might be one of the most genius level design elements in the whole game. Last, we have the anti-gravity mask, and I won't lie. When this was introduced, my first reaction was, this seems a bit uninspired. I mean, half these masks are gimmicks indie devs throw into the puzzle platformers to make them a little bit more interesting. And while yes, that is true, it's more important how the levels and challenges designed around these mechanics themselves are actually made, especially since these powers are limited to specific parts of the levels. And that is done very well. The changing of gravity works quickly and responsively. You can change back and forth in mid-air, and the game loves to have you use this and essentially just gives you a much higher jump that way, by making you fall towards the ceiling and then choosing the right moment to start falling back towards the floor, which you only have two directions the gravity will ever work in, not from side to side, which also would have been interesting, but I guess that's why we have wall running. Oh, didn't I mention that before? Yeah, we have wall running, and it's literally just jump into the arrows on the wall and the game will do all the rest for you until you jump off. It's almost as if a cutscene gets triggered more so than it being part of a gameplay element. There is a clear difference on how the gravity power works between 2D and 3D sections. It's mostly used in 2D, where it works well, but the moment you're walking on the ceiling in a 3D platforming section, things just get a little bit weird and very disorienting. It's completely possible that it's just my monkey brain not being able to comprehend what's going on with the combination of anti-gravity and the depth perception, but it wasn't a lot of fun for me. All these powers are fun to play with, in one way or another. But in the final level of the game, you have to go through one final gauntlet of platform obstacles, where they make you use all of the masks in a chain, not even getting to touch the floor before you get to the next mask. And honestly, it's the best ending to a Crash Bandicoot game we've gotten so far. It challenges your understanding of these powers and your reaction time with them, but most importantly, it is very satisfying to pull off from the start to the end. Oh, and if you're wondering why Crash can use these masks to literally ban space-time, they use the word quantum in a cutscene, so it's all scientifically sound stuff. There have also been smaller tweaks and changes to the main gameplay loop. For instance, you don't just get a gem for collecting all of the boxes anymore. There are 6 gems in every level and you have no crystals. Of course you get a gem for collecting all the crates in the level, and since all the levels also have gotten a fair deal longer than they used to be, the amount of crates has skyrocketed too. Your average level will have about 150 or so crates, compared to the maybe 60 or 70 in the original games. As a result of this, it's much easier to miss a single crate and just not get the gem. This is where the Wumpa gems come into play. You have a little bar under your Wumpa fruit counter while playing a level, which also allows you to collect gems. Filling up this bar for 40, 60 or 80% will give you a gem for each milestone you reach. This means that even if you miss a couple of boxes and you can't get the box gem, you still have a reason to keep collecting the remaining crates, as they contain Wumpa fruits. This is actually a pretty big improvement on the classic games, where there really wasn't a reason to keep collecting the remaining boxes if you missed as much as one. There's also a hidden gem somewhere in every level. These are just a matter of trying to spot it somewhere in the background while you're running through. Usually they're not even that difficult to get once you actually know where they are. The last gem is for completing the level with less than 3 deaths, which might sound a little bit weird because your incentive for not jumping into a bottomless pit is not losing a life, right? Why would you need a gem to reward you for that too? Well, I'm about to give you some bad news. The game offers you two different options, modern and retro style. In retro style you have lives, and when you run out of lives you have to restart the level from the beginning. In modern mode you have infinite lives, and as such they needed to give you something for going through these levels without too many fails. My main issue comes in at the point where the game, even in retro mode, throws so many lives at you it's unlikely that you'll ever run out. I've had levels where I died 20 times and exited the level with more lives than I entered it with. This is due to a combination of you getting an insane amount of crates with lives in them, combined with the fact that you're now getting so many Wumpa fruits, since there are many more boxes in this game and the Wumpas are actually related to getting gems. The only time I ever run out of lives was in the level Dino Dash, as I mentioned before, at which point I switched to modern mode, because yes, you can do that. And I finished in that way. Once you finish the level and see how many gems you've gotten, you'll also see that getting a certain amount of gems in any given level will reward you with a skin. If you're having trouble getting all 6 gems in a level to unlock the skin you really want, you can always play the inverted version of that level, where you can find, and I'm not kidding, upside down gems. These levels change the look of the game from being a wonderful cartoony looking game to something else entirely. What it exactly looks like depends on the world you're in. Some of these are better than others. Like the comic book one, I love that. But this one? It literally looks like they just removed the textures from the models. No, scrap that. They literally just removed the textures from the models! This also serves as a kind of mirror mode, as the levels are mirrored. A bit, I guess. I guess if you're very used to playing the original levels, it might throw you off a little, but the changes aren't really big enough to make any major impact on gameplay. And all of that was just talking about the levels where you play as Crash himself. Oh, I guess you can also play as Coco, but who cares? Sometimes you'll unlock extra levels where you can get to play as characters such as Torna, but she's a pirate, or Dingodile, even Cortex is playable. These levels are optional and show you what the characters have been doing behind the screens and how those actions influence the levels you've already played as Crash. They're a nice addition, but they don't all play great. Torna levels are a joy to play. She has a grappling hook, a wall jump ability, but only against predetermined platforms, much like the wall runs Crash can do. She moves a little bit slower, but overall not that different. Her levels feel a little bit more open and bigger since she has a lot of empty space where you can use her grappling hook shot thingy to zip around. But largely, she's just the same as Crash, which I'm all about, since Crash and Coco play so buttery smooth to begin with. Then we have Dingodile. He plays much slower. He doesn't really have a double jump and his levels are filled with lots of crates. It's not rare to enter one of his levels and see a counter that goes up beyond 400 crates. He also doesn't have a flamethrower, but instead a vacuum? Leaf blower? Something along those lines, which he can use to suck up crates, but more importantly, TNT. You can suck up TNT crates and fire them at targets, be it crates, enemies, or breakable walls. His leaf blower? No, really, what is this? Also allows him to hover a bit, and at the end of that hover, he gets a slight boost upwards, almost giving him something like a double jump. If you love breaking crates, you will love Dingodile. I wasn't a huge fan because every time you die you need to break all of those frankly stupid amount of crates. Of course, if you don't die, that's not an issue. Then we have Cortex. No double jump, no hover, generally just horrible for any kind of platforming. He can, however, make his own platforms out of enemies. With his gun, he can turn enemies into platforms. Then, once he shoots those platforms again, they turn into bouncy platforms to get more height. From there, you jump around and use his dash ability, which he has for reasons, to get around to level. By far, this is the least fun and interesting gameplay style. I don't want to say it's bad, but in a game that's filled with so many good things, much like Dino Dash, this one thing stands out to me as being a weak point for the game. But we must remember that most of these levels are completely optional, only really requiring you to play as Cortex twice in the whole game. Most of these optional levels aren't even fully for the new characters. Once you finish their gameplay section, you switch back to Crash to see how the level you just played has impacted him, and you get to replay the last part of Crash's level, usually with some extra crates or nitro, something to make it a little bit more difficult and different from the original version. Oh, hold on, you might be wondering why we can even play as Cortex, the main bad guy you've always been fighting against. Well, at the start of the game, Cortex and Entropy escaped whatever hellscape they were left in at the end of the last game, because Uka Uka was trying to go Super Saiyan and open a portal. It's not that relevant. And they start making problems. Also, Uka Uka dies? Engine and Embryo are also back, and for some reason Embryo is now a bad guy again. Didn't he try to blow up Cortex's ship at the end of the second game? Questions for another time. Then, before even getting to Entropy, you fight Cortex, who seems to be absolutely done with the eternal struggle between him and Crash. At one point, one of the masks even asks Crash, how many times have you beaten him? And Coco says 3. This is one of the many moments in which developers go full hello fellow kids and have the mask say, strange, it feels like more. And it's not just this one time, the game really makes sure to hit you over the head with it. This is canon as the sequel to Crash 3. All those other games, we hate them too, we're cool. Wasn't I talking about Cortex? Oh yeah, this boss fight. By the way, if you die in a boss fight, you don't restart the full thing. You get reset back to the phase you're in right now, which translates to since the last time you actually hit the boss. No more sidetracks. Entropy tells Cortex he no longer needs him, and in true anti-hero style, he teams up with the good guys and take down Entropy. He even has this one moment where Coco calls him a bad guy, and he honestly seems sad to hear that this is the way they think of him. Are they actually developing Cortex into an interesting character? Nah, of course not. After we beat Entropy, Cortex learns that he can time travel with the help of these masks, and goes back to the first Crash Bandicoot game to stop himself from making Crash. And yet, it's not just a matter of getting rid of his enemy before he can become a problem. Once Cortex loses, he's banished to the end of the universe, whatever that means. And he's kind of glad about it, because he can just finally relax and be free of the eternal struggle between him and Crash. I like this idea, him being a somewhat unwilling part of this all who just keeps getting dragged back into it time after time. I honestly hope that they keep this up for his character, because it's much funnier that way, while also giving him some depth. Of course, Uka Uka shows up, because of course he didn't die, but only if you 100% again. Yeah, this is the most boring secret ending in the series. Man, I think that might have been my longest review yet. If you want to see me play the game and develop all these thoughts as I do, check my Let's Play of the game, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you have enjoyed this.